from a risk opportunity sort of balance standpoint, I feel like there's two topics I've been thinking a lot about in the back of my mind, particularly as it relates to our product roadmap, but also the broader industry. I'll give you two topics and let's figure out which one excites you more. RTM or AI? You pick one of those two and let's go down that path.
Which one excites me more?
From a risk or opportunity standpoint.
It depends who you are. I guess it depends who we're trying to talk to. If we're talking to someone who they have their act together and they have great workflows and they're operationally sound, then you should absolutely be going the AI route because it's all about efficiency and it's all about transparency, and that could exponentially leverage what you're already doing. However, if you don't have your act together and you're a hot mess when it comes to understanding your KPI data and all these other operational workflow concerns that you may have, compliance is going to bite you in the butt because it's just going to expose you exponentially to what you're not already doing. It's just going to compound those problems. And RTM,
Man,
that's part of the problem.
You got I did not expect. I thought the risk guy would be like, no, stay away. But okay, keep going.
No, that's totally not my style. No, I love saying give it a shot, but do it right, do it well, put some thought into it because RTM is, we have not seen audits that have been detrimental in any way regarding RTM. It's been the opposite. RTM has been caught up in other audits where something went wrong, and then all of a sudden they're like, hey, by the way, what happened with this RTM content? We need that now. Mostly because they don't know how to build appropriately for it. So that's been the exposure, not the actual service.
It's interesting. Okay, so let's now we open a can of worms here. So let's just go down this path. So let's talk about AI first. And I was half joking, half serious, right? When I say I didn't expect you to be kind of open to it. I think I'm going to say this assertively, but I really do. I am curious for you to see how we spar on this a little bit. What's interesting to me is that a lot of the companies in the healthcare and PT space these days are just, the marketing team basically is just using AI as like the jargon now. Everything's AI, right? Now, technically everything's probably just a wrapper on top of OpenAI and stuff, and that's fine. But we should probably talk about where the risks are in terms of HIPAA and PHI going to third-party systems that's not being openly disclosed and all that stuff. But the other side of this also is that I think in 2025, there is probably a 50 to 80% chance, in my opinion, that somebody is going to get audited about their usage of AI in the healthcare space, and the results are going to be disastrous. And I say this because as it stands right now, I'll just speak for myself, and if anybody wants to throw their own name in the ring, they can. But I don't want to out anybody. I've been noticing more and more of our customers behind the scenes saying to me "Hey, my business insurance just renewed, and there's an exclusion on AI usage." Or the argument is "Oh, now they just want me to pay for a different rider to cover the usage of these tools." And on the flip side, you look at all these tools that are out there, and we won't name names, but anybody, listening to this, you're getting targeted by ads for lots of different companies that are touting AI. But if you read the terms of service that are buried on the website, it's like that small fine print at the bottom of the ad and all that stuff. The indemnifications and the sort of legal hoops they're going through to make sure that their liability is limited to no more than whatever you paid them for that piece of software for all those efficiency gains. Something interesting is going to be happening in 2025 because all of these things can't be true. All these companies can't be so sure about the gains of efficiency and all these other promises they're making. They can't be so sure about all of those promises while also indemnifying themselves in very concrete ways, while simultaneously, business and malpractice insurers are starting to exclude or carve out AI usage. So something interesting is going to happen in 2025. I don't know what it looks like, but I do think there's going to be some big questions about it because this whole thing has not been battle tested yet. When we think about AI in the consumer space, the risk of me asking ChatGPT or whatever to help me plan my kid's Disney vacation, the downside risk of that is essentially nothing, right? Because ChatGPT kind of says, hey, it might make mistakes. I think it actually says it right on the tool. It says hey, be careful, but They also say in their own terms of service, don't use this for legal stuff. Don't use this for healthcare stuff. Like it says it right there. And yet, when I was at PPS 2 months ago, I feel like every booth on there, on the floor there, had something about AI, and it's just I don't know. This is all poorly articulated. I thought it'd be interesting to kind of just get your your risk perspective on it. Anyway, that was maybe more of a ramble, but any thoughts there?
Well, I come from the property and casualty space, so I love policies, and I think it's fascinating that yes, language has changed, and that's why you always every year, just like every other policy, you got to shop it. The language does change, the riders, the cost, all that. Just like when cyber all of a sudden was excluded, right? You always have to now have a standalone policy for your. People ask me, well, HIPAA's included. I'm like, yes, HIPAA is always included in your professional liability. However, if there's a cyber event, that is not going to be covered. Legal, those fees are not going to be covered. And that's why the applications are, 8, 10 pages long now just to get a cyber coverage. So yes, your point is this is untested water. This is something that is going to be very interesting. However, I think that's any different than Change Healthcare blowing up, everyone's, first quarter by kind of leaking the biggest possible thing that you could possibly leak. And then everyone's kind of like, business as usual. So I think AI is still very new, that both sides of the providers, the payers, everyone's still trying to wrap their arms around how could I benefit from it. So I don't think we're there yet that people actually understand, well, how do I protect? It's still pedal down, that people are still saying we got to keep going to learn more, as opposed to saying, slow down, how do we actually protect in the event of failure, in my opinion.
We're both probably pretending to be attorneys here for a moment, but let's just play with that for a second. Out of curiosity, I'm curious and again, the disclaimer for anybody listening, neither of us are attorneys, right? So don't take it, but just speaking in broad strokes here, I was just thinking about even our own business. I was like, wait a second, does our employee handbook specifically tell our staff that they can only use AI in tools that we give them? Like otherwise, in other words, I just had this, like, my heart drop a little bit where I was like, wait a second, is it possible that somewhere in our business, somebody's using AI tools that we don't know about because they're trying to be more productive? Um, and then that made me kind of think, as we're talking to you, is like, wait a second, should one of the low hanging fruit for practice owners this year be like, hey, you should probably just make sure your employee handbook is kind of up to date, so you're covering your butt from.
It's one of the reasons why policies are supposed to be reviewed every year. People don't like doing it. It's terribly burdensome, and people don't know where to start. And just to segue to myself, I guess, that's something that we take pride in. We actually love going through policies. We update ours every single year. It's one of the things that you should have on your roadmap. It's the easiest thing to do. You carve out a week of time every, whatever it may be, second quarter. But there's a couple things that you got to do every year. And that's one of them. You got to train your staff, right? To your point, does my staff know what my standards are? You got to train your staff. And in healthcare, it's the standard. You have to, every single employee, doesn't matter if you're the CEO or just the person, opening the front door up in the morning, you got to train your staff on this stuff. And the argument that you used to hear as well, it's really expensive, and that's one of the things that where I take a lot of pride in saying, you know what, it shouldn't be. It should just be as affordable as anything else out there on the market. And we've done that. It's fantastic. Same thing with the reference materials. You got to go through that. And if you're just relying on something that's on a shelf somewhere, that's not good enough. You have to go through your content and really update it to reflect what you're actually performing. And then also in terms of insight, you're talking a lot about insight, and you could only do that through auditing, to actually seeing what you're doing and saying, hey, by the way, what is my marketing team doing? Have I actually measured them against what they're supposed to be doing, which is supposed to reflect what the standards are set for them? And the answer is, if that's not happening, then you really don't know what's taking place. So you gotta be proactive. Instead of a lot of people that come to me, they're saying, well, this happened, how do I fix it? And the answer is, it never would have happened if we had A, B, and C. But you can't say that, right? You have to say, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to help you out. But it really, it's that whole component of, I heard someone recently on your show say, parents don't take their kids, right, to therapy preventatively.
If you'd like to learn more about Strata PT and see how our EMR and RCM works, head over to stratapt.com to book a demo.